Hey, welcome back to the Smoke Shack. This is Steve, and Connor will be taking his video virtually today and then sending it over, and we will be stitching this together here for Two Perspective Tuesday. We are bringing you a review on J.C. Newman's The American. Really a great looking bands on this cigar. This is a 4.5 by 50 Robusto. Florida sun-grown wrapper here. Connecticut Broadleaf for the binder. Pennsylvania and Connecticut tobaccos for the fillers. It is all American. It really is. Everything that goes into this cigar is either made or produced in America, which is fantastic to hear about. It's really something that really intrigues me about the cigar. As far as our craftsmanship score here goes for the cigar, presentation is a 9 out of 10. Again, really highlighting that fact that everything from the box, the wood, the hinges, the bolts that go into the box, the cellophane wrappers for the cigar, the bands themselves, everything, the tobacco, everything is made here in the US. Very, very cool. And also the bands do pop very, very nicely on this wrapper. This Florida sun-grown wrapper. Phenomenal looking cigar here. As far as the construction goes, an 8 out of 10 for me. The cap is just a slightly bit, not messed up, but just a little bit wonky. Nothing that's going to really affect us as far as the smoke or the cut, but it is something that I need to point out because it's not a perfect cigar if it doesn't have a perfect cap. So it does lose a little bit of point value there, but not the best roll. It is just slightly uneven with a couple bumps throughout the cigar. So an 8 out of 10 here. Otherwise, very, very good spring here on the cigar, and really a really good roll here. It's pretty even. It's just not extremely and perfectly even. It's just have to take off for it. As far as the color goes, looking at the toe, it is quite vibrant here for just using two fillers. One of them being the Connecticut, which is a very lighter shade, and then that Pennsylvania tobacco is a little bit darker. So you can really tell that because it does pop there in the toe. But a 7 out of 10 here for the color. The Vitola of this cigar, I do love the Robustos, but the 4.5 by 50, really I just like that half inch more. I like to be the 5 by 50 or 5 by 52 or even a 5 by 54. So an 8 out of 10 here for this Vitola, just not particularly liking the smaller size. A 1.65 for the craftsmanship score of this cigar. As far as the aromas go, very heavy on the barnyard for the wrapper. I mean, very, very earthy and very heavy on the barnyard. Toe is very sweet. Aged cedar with a bit of raisin in there as well. It's phenomenal. I really do like the scent of that cigar. Gonna go ahead and cut it. Wow, a lot of raisin there on that dry draw. Wow, it is very sour too. That's impressive. Aged cedar in there as well, and then just a hint of earthy in the background, but a whole lot of raisin there on that dry draw. Gonna go ahead and light it up. Very, very woody to start here. A whole whole lot of aged cedar to just jump right out of the gate, and a little bit of white pepper in there as well. Some earthy tones that are just hiding in the background. Gonna go ahead and smoke it down towards the end of the first third and then catch you back up with my thoughts. Now sending it over to Connor for his craftsmanship score.
Welcome back to the Smoke Shack. You have Connor. Steven, thank you for introducing this fine JC Newman American cigar. The only difference you will see between the cigars Steven and I have is my size. I have a 4.5 by 50 Robusto. You know, that initial scent off of the Florida Sun-Grown is pretty good. It's really sweet, but it has like a little bit of barnyard in there. It kind of reminds me of like raisiny Red Man flavor, and this is going to be like a very generic thing to say, but it's a really traditional tobacco smell, right? Like this is exactly what you want to smell in a good tobacco. Very sweet with like a mild barnyard there. Kind of a spice off of the foot of the cigar. Getting into the score here for the craftsmanship, the presentation is an absolute dime. 10 out of 10 here. The band on this cigar is just pretty incredible. Attention to detail, good quality paper. And it's the All-American. How can you hate on that? The box, All-American wood, All-American cellophane. And with JC Newman, the attention to detail starts at the cellophane wrapper there, as you can see. So, absolute 10 out of 10 there. However, the construction here, it's a little less than ideal. 7 out of 10. The cap is a little wonky there. And I'm not sure if you can see on the cigar here, but it's kind of bumpy where the veins are, and it's almost like the wrapper is not kind of all the way on in certain places. The color here, it's a little matte. I'm not really a huge fan of the matte, so 7 out of 10 there. However, the Vitola, absolute 10 out of 10. As you know, I am a huge fan of the Robusto size. So I'm gonna go ahead, cut this, fire it up, and give you some initial thoughts here. Very black pepper heavy on the initial dry draw. Maybe a little cedar spice in there. Pretty good taste, pretty good draw. Almost seems a little loose. I forgot to mention, it seems there's a very nice spring to this cigar. It's gently soft, has a nice bounce to it, but it's not like super spongy either, you know. It's a pretty good ideal draw, or sorry, spring there. Pretty good burn on that. Very mild, very mellow, creamy. Some cedar in there. Maybe a little nutty. Very flavorful. Almost has a graham cracker taste going on in there. It's pretty good burst of flavor on this first couple of puffs. So I'm gonna go ahead, smoke this down, and bring you back with my thoughts on the first third.
Bringing you back in at about the end of the first third here of this cigar. The flavor profile here is very simple. It is cedar, cream, and white pepper. Very, very rich for those three flavors, but just three flavors here in the flavor profile. The intensity, like I said, extremely rich here for a very, very mild in strength cigar to start. Maybe a 1 or 1.5 to 2 out of 10 as far as the strength here to start from the nicotine. But as far as the richness of flavor or the intensity here, it's a 6 out of 10 for that flavor. Really phenomenal for a very, very mild start here on this cigar. Enjoyability, an 8 out of 10. Flavors, although there's not a whole lot going on here in the flavor profile, they are very rich. They're quite dry. It's hard to say that they're dry, whether it be on the flavor profile or on the finish. Kind of seems like it's on both, but that cedar is very creamy, but the white pepper is almost kind of like cinnamon. It really dries your mouth out on the puffs. So an 8 out of 10 here for that enjoyability. Complexity, as I said, it only has 3 flavors in this flavor profile, so a 6 out of 10 here for the complexity, just not overly complex here. The finish, however, extremely rich and long in length for a mild cigar. Really don't get that a whole lot, so a very enjoyable finish here, a 10 out of 10 for that finish on this cigar. Phenomenal. It's creamy, but does have that just flick on the tongue, like sharp bites from that white pepper. Phenomenal. The draw here, a 10 out of 10. It has just been fantastic throughout the cigar, or at least throughout the first third here, since we've only made it through the first third. But the consistency here, well, actually, the char line doesn't look a whole lot too bad there for you. However, it has been rather wavy throughout this first third. A 7 out of 10 here for that consistency. Combustion, a 7 out of 10. Just not fully balanced. Like I said, it's drier on the mouth. At least that flavor profile is a little drier on the mouth. The ash structure, not looking the best either. It's a little solid, but it's starting to flake. It's just not looking really great. A 6 out of 10 here for that ash structure. And then the ash color is even worse. A 3 out of 10 here for the ash color. It's very, very dark in spots. I mean, black. And then the rest of it is very gray. So a 3 out of 10 here for that ash color. Resting smoke, though, or our smoke assessment, just really not a whole lot going wrong with the smoke assessment. Resting smoke is an 8 out of 10 just because it's coming out of the head there a little bit. As you can see, just rolling out there, but very nice amount of smoke coming off of the char line there. Drawing smoke, a 9 out of 10. I would like it to be a little bit more creamy or velvety in my mouth. It's a little bit airy and light, just a little bit. Would like it to be a little bit more to get that 10 out of 10. As far as the mouthfeel and temperature though go, 10 out of 10, and then a 7 out of 10 for the aroma, giving us a 7.60 for this first third of the cigar. Kicking it over to Connor for his thoughts.
Hey, thanks, Steve. So as you can see, bringing you back in here for the first third. Pretty solid ash structure there. Pretty good burn line. Not perfect, but pretty good. However, the color is a little off for me. Overall, it's a very enjoyable cigar. I have the intensity pretty mild to medium at a 3 out of 10 right now. The flavor profiles that I'm getting, it's very, very tasty. There's some baking spice, some warm bread in there, kind of a graham crackery taste going on, but it's very mellow, very mild. It's really tasty, but it's not like taking over my mouth. So I got an 8 out of 10 on the intensity there. There's nothing like really like taking over the whole mouth palate. The enjoyability, 10 out of 10. Complexity, 8 out of 10. There's enough going on here for a Florida sun-grown, very tasty wrapper. Pretty complex because there is a well-balanced blend going on. It's not the same thing on every draw. The finish is a 10 out of 10. It has a very nice mouthfeel. The burn performance is also really good here. The draw and consistency are perfect. I have an 8 out of 10 on the combustion just because that burn line is slightly uneven. However, the ash structure is a 9 out of 10. Slightly flaky in one spot, but other than that one tiny spot, it's almost perfect. However, the ash color does take a hit here, dropping the ash color down to a 6. You know, it's just a little gray, and it's pretty black in some places. White's trying to come out in there, but it's overall pretty gray on the ash color to me. The smoke assessment here is also pretty darn good. Mouthfeel, temperature, and aroma are all 10 out of 10s. It really smells nice in the room here. Drawing smoke, I have it at a 9 out of 10. It was sort of brownish on the first couple of exhales. However, it's pretty darn good now. And the resting smoke, I have it out of 7 out of 10. It's kind of all over the place coming out of the cap. I did see some blue on the coming off of the burn line, but it's not consistent there. So again, it's just 1% of the score. So being honest, 7 out of 10 there. Pretty great score here for the first third, 8.94. I'm going to go ahead, smoke this down, and come back with my thoughts on the second third. Steve, back over to you.
Hey, bringing you back in at about the end of the second third here of this cigar. The flavor profile here is a charred wood, or maybe even charred cedar, black pepper. There's nuttiness in here as well, and some cream. Really a lot of rich flavor coming mainly from that charred wood and that black pepper. The black pepper is really crackling on my tongue. It is really sharp there. As far as the richness of flavor here, or the intensity, an 8 out of 10 here for the cigar. Enjoyability does peak up here to a 9 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for complexity. The flavor profile adds another element here. Also a nice evolution of the flavor profile as well. Finish, still extremely phenomenal. A 10 out of 10. It is rich and long in length. Fantastic. The draw here, a 10 out of 10. Getting great puffs every time I'm smoking. The consistency, or our char line, excuse me, that was wild. Our char line, or consistency here, is a 8 out of 10. Just the waviness is a little bit better, but still rather wavy. Of course, when I get it on camera here, it's about a 9 out of 10. It's not too bad, but it was rather bad there earlier. The ash structure here, it actually just fell off before we cut back into camera. Very, very flaky here for the ash structure, and it's just been kind of blowing outward. Just really not a good looking ash here. 5 out of 10 here for that ash structure. Ash color, 4 out of 10. It does get a little bit whiter, but not much. Still some very big black spots there on the ash, and it is still very, very gray. The smoke assessment, really nothing has changed there besides the mouthfeel. The mouthfeel is a 9 out of 10. It's just slightly coarse on the mouth here, and after that halfway point, so I'm thinking it's going to get coarse here in the final third. But for this second third, it is an 8.38 for that score. Gonna go ahead and smoke it down into the final third, but before I do that, let's listen to Connor's thoughts on it the second third.
Steve, thanks for kicking it back over to me here. Pretty darn good smoke going here. You know, that flavor profile did turn over. I got a lot of baking spice, some yeast, almost like baking bread, some black pepper mixed in with it, and it was this creamy taste that was trying to masquerade as a muskiness, like a barnyard musk, but very tasty, not in a bad way at all. Not a whole lot changed on the flavor profile score here. I did bump the complexity up to a 9. Just, it turned over well. There's some decent flavors that I'm really enjoying in this cigar. The combustion took a slight hit here. The burn line's just not ideal. I mean, it's pretty darn close, but it's just a little off in a couple of places. Just less than ideal. Ash structure, it just fell off on its own here, so I don't have much of an ash to show you. However, the color did improve. It got a little bit more white, actually a lot more white on that second third. The resting smoke did improve to a 9, and the drawing smoke, mouthfeel, temperature, and aroma all stayed at a 10 out of 10. Need to correct that. I had 0.01, bringing my second third score up to a 9.06. I'm gonna go ahead, smoke this down, bring you back with my thoughts on the second third and the overall final score for the J.C. Newman American Cigar. Steve, back over to you.
Hey, bringing you back in for the final third of this cigar. The flavor profile here is still very nutty. There's a good amount of bread that comes in here in the final third. It's very toasty. Black pepper, cream, and some coffee bean as well. Really a phenomenal flavor profile. very rich in flavor. An 8 out of 10 here for the intensity. My ash is just falling off right now, so I'm going to be careful with that. But 8 out of 10 here for the richness of flavor. Enjoyability, a 9 out of 10. It's very, very enjoyable here. I think the only thing that's really not enjoyable, well, besides having to watch where the ash is going, because it is just all over the place here on this cigar. The only thing that's not enjoyable is just there's a slight amount of coarseness on my mouth here. But other than that, very, very enjoyable. Complexity, a 10 out of 10 here. It just is a very, very well-rounded flavor profile. The finish, a 9 out of 10 here as well. Very long and rich in flavor. The draw here, a 9 out of 10. Just slightly loose. I know it was perfect throughout this whole cigar, but it is just slightly loose here in the final third. The consistency or our char line actually just evened itself out, probably just burned down that leaf or the wrapper leaf there. But it was very, very wavy. That whole wrapper leaf was up like that. Just recently burned down here, but a 5 out of 10 here for that char line. Combustion here, a 9 out of 10. It's very, very well balanced here in the final third. Definitely more balanced than it has been throughout this whole cigar. So very enjoyable. Ash structure, bad. It's just bad. It's falling all over the place. It's still falling all over the place. A 4 out of 10 here for that ash structure. 5 out of 10 for the color though, as it is getting just slightly whiter. Very, very dark still though. So a 5 out of 10. And then our smoke assessment, nothing has really changed besides the mouthfeel. An 8 out of 10 here, as it is just slightly more coarse in this final third. An 8.45 for the final third's score. As far as the strength of the cigar goes, I have this thing sitting at about a 3.5 out of 10, but we're going to bump it up to a 4 out of 10 just because that is our solid number. We don't do half numbers, but it really could be a 3.5 if we had halves. Very, very mild as far as the strength, but wow. Extreme amount of richness coming out of that mild strength. Just very, very, very enjoyable for the flavors that you're getting through them and how rich they are. As far as the overall score goes, I've got this thing rated as a 8.14 for the overall score.
Steve, thanks for kicking it back over here. Getting into the final third. You know, the flavor profile turned over again. That muskiness did come out, but it was a sweet. There was hints of bitterness, but they were very mild, very tasty. The cedar popped in this final third for me. Very nutty flavor profile going on here. Also very creamy. There was a cream there that I was thinking was kind of coming out, bringing that muskiness out. It remained creamy until the very end, and then it got musky, but it was very mild, very tasty, very flavorful up until the very end of that cigar. Really enjoyed the flavor profile here. The intensity bumped up a little bit to a 9. There was a lot more flavor. It turned over. Very enjoyable, complex, very nice finish here. Fantastic draw, very consistent in that manner. However, the ash structure and the color, probably the biggest knocks against this entire cigar, honestly. Ash color, again, kind of got really black there for a little bit, dropping that score down to a 6. However, the smoking assessment was fantastic, except for that resting smoke. It kind of got a little crazy there again, bringing my final third score up to a 9.29. Running through the scores, 8.94 for the first third, 9.06 for the second third, and as I said, a 9.29 for the final third. Very good scores on this JC Newman American. Craftsmanship score at 1.67 brings my overall score here to a 9.10. I highly recommend this cigar, and if you haven't already tried one, absolutely go get yourself a JC Newman American. Smoke it, rate it on the Cigar TV Burn Rate app, and let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time here on the Smoke Shack.
These things MSRP for about $20 a stick, giving our price per point score 2.46 for this cigar. Very, very high for that rating. If you know anything about the cigar, well, I guess I gave a little bit of information, but all American made, tobaccos, everything in the cigar, down to the box, the cellophane, everything is American made here. That's probably why the price point is just a little bit higher here for this cigar. It is even rolled here in America, so we're using American rollers. The wages and just the labor costs is going to get up there for the cigar. So we are sitting at that higher price point because of all of that. But as far as a really, I kind of want to give it a 3 out of 10, but a 4 out of 10 strength cigar. It's got very, very rich flavors in it. Not mild at all. In fact, there are some of the more heavy flavors in this, especially here at the end with the coffee bean, that toasted bread. We had the charred oak in the halfway point. That cream throughout. I know the cream's more of a lighter flavor, but it just has a nice, it just fits into that flavor profile really well. Phenomenal. Really enjoyed this. It was quite delicious here for my liking. Even though the score is really low, I think that all just had to do with the burn performance. We just really did not have a good ash throughout this cigar. Kind of hurt us there, and then I think it really hurt the balance of the cigar as well. You know, early on, if it would have added maybe a flavor here or there in that first third, it would have also performed a little bit better. But just really an enjoyable cigar from my end. I have it rated pretty low here, 8.14. Connor, which you guys already heard Connor's, but I have not looked at his just yet. Let's see what that looks like. Wow, he's got this rated as a 9.10. So Connor really, really enjoyed this cigar. Would like to get his thoughts there on the flavor profiles and what he was picking up there for this cigar. But really, an enjoyable cigar here. If you like the video, drop a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're on a push right now to get 250 subscribers. Be a part of the Smoke Shack community. Hit that button. We'll see you next time here on the Smoke Shack.